Tonight we're in Windsor as the town prepares to say goodbye to the Duke. Prince Edward and his family arrived here earlier for a funeral service of just 30 guests tomorrow. But despite restrictions, the town itself is paying its own tribute to one of its most famous locals.
Well, he'd lived here for 70 years with the Queen. So I think he was obviously very fond of it. He had a lot to do in the county, particularly in the latter years.
And as people continue to reflect on the Duke's life, we'll be in Peckham, where they're looking to the future while remembering his past.
I think I'm making the Duke proud. If I'm completing the Duke of Edinburgh, it's making me proud, it's making my family proud, and he knows that his legacy is living on.
Also on the programme tonight, help me find the people who killed my son, the desperate plea from the father of a teenager murdered in a case of mistaken identity. And
one of you is sitting near a post which came from an oak tree in Windsor Great Park. I don't know what it is.
backing the Bard, Shakespeare's Globe remembers the Duke of Edinburgh as a patron and a friend.
Good evening from Windsor Castle. It was here just a week ago that Prince Philip died peacefully, with the world being told the news just a few hours later. And tomorrow the royal family will gather here to say a final goodbye to the man his grandson Prince William called extraordinary. Prince Philip had always said he wanted a send-off with very little fuss, and tomorrow, because of restrictions, that's exactly what he'll have. It'll be very much a family affair with just 30 guests. He'll then be taken to the Royal Vault of St George's Chapel, which is just behind me. Final preparations have been taking place for most of the day, but the public have been asked not to gather here in order to keep everyone safe. But that doesn't mean that the town itself won't be remembering one of its most famous neighbours in its own special way, as Martin Stew reports.
Sunrise in Windsor. Today the town prepared for the nation to say goodbye. Tomorrow, images of Windsor will be shown around the world as the Duke of Edinburgh is laid to rest in the vault beneath St George's Chapel. But in the town itself, outside of the grounds, there'll be nothing to see.
We recognise people may want to pay their respects, but we're reinforcing the government message really, that is avoid any unnecessary journeys and to stay at home. There will be nothing to see in Windsor. All the ceremony and events will be inside the castle, and so if you want to see what's going on, we'd really encourage you to stay at home and watch it on TV.
Alongside Buckingham Palace, one of the places the Duke spent most of his 73 years of married life living was here at Windsor Castle. He celebrated his 80th birthday here, played polo in the grounds and did so much to support youth groups and local charities.
Well, he'd lived here for 70 years with the Queen, so I think he was obviously very fond of it. He had a lot to do in the county, particularly in the latter years when the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh didn't travel very far. They did a lot more in the county.
This photograph, I guess, was taken in about the 1970s.
In normal times, the former players at Windsor Rugby Club, whose pitch is visible from the castle, would have gathered to watch the funeral together.
This is a picture when Prince Philip actually visited the club.
Tomorrow, they'll be physically apart, but united in shared memories of their patron.
We did come down here for a lunch. He would drive himself down with his security officer and drive himself back. So it was the visits here were very, very relaxed, and it was a pleasure to see him here.
And he wanted to stay and watch and chat to them all and to their parents instead of going back to the castle.
The funeral will reflect the Duke's ties to the military, but has had to be scaled back because of COVID. The Frimley Army cadets were due to be involved, but will now be watching from home.
With the COVID situation the way it is, we absolutely understand that there are restrictions in place. But we will try and commemorate him and his life and his commitment to us in some other way in due course.
The service will start immediately after a minute's silence held at 3 p.m. She bids farewell to her husband of more than 7 decades. Social distancing means the Queen will have to sit alone.
I've no doubt it is one of the greatest trials of her life, probably the greatest trial of her life. But she will, I am sure, be as ever herself.
Just 30 guests, including the Earl and Countess of Wessex, who examined flowers today, will be allowed inside. A family's private grief at the heart of a nation's mourning. Martin Stew, ITV News.
As we mentioned, the public are being asked not to come here tomorrow. So let's take a look at what has been planned. At 2:41 tomorrow afternoon, the Duke of Edinburgh's coffin will leave the state entrance of Windsor Castle and be put into a custom-made Land Rover, which the Prince helped design. Then a few minutes later, the Queen, wearing a face mask, will join by car. The procession steps off at 2:45. 9 members of Prince Philip's family will walk behind it, including William and Harry and Princess Anne's son, Peter Phillips. 8 minutes later, the procession will arrive at St George's Chapel. And as Prince Philip's coffin is carried up the steps, it will pause at 3 o'clock for the national minute's silence. Well, ever since the Queen took the throne back in 1952, Windsor Castle has been her and Prince Philip's weekend retreat. They have, of course, been shielding here, though, for the past year because of the pandemic. But for almost 70 years, the Prince has very much been involved in local life here. Chris Aitken is from local charity, the Prince Philip Trust, and joins us now. Chris, thanks so much for joining us. He was a very involved neighbour, wasn't he?
He was, yes. He was seen throughout the neighbourhood by the locals. You'd see him carriage driving on the long walk, and he'd stop and chat. You would occasionally see him at the Royal Farm shop. I saw him there not so long ago. He just turned up to chat to the staff there. And of course he's been very involved with all sorts of local charities, not least our own, of course.
Of course. Tell us about your charity.
Well,
it bears his name, of course,
it does indeed, the Prince Philip Trust Fund. We're a local charity supporting great causes in the Royal Borough of Windsor and Maidenhead. We were formed in 1977 by the Duke and the then Mayor, Sir Kit Aston. There was £20,000 left from the Queen's Silver Jubilee Fund, and they thought it'd be a good idea to set up something to support local residents. So that's what they did. There was a big debate about who should chair the charity, and the Duke is quoted as saying, well, it's my charity, so I will chair it. And
in a very Duke tone.
Absolutely, and that's exactly what he did brilliantly for virtually 37 years.
Yeah.
And he took us from the £20,000 to currently £2.5 million under invested, and we have given well over £2 million to support local residents, and supported 16 to 1800 individuals and charities within the borough.
Because people who don't live in the borough and don't live in this town would assume that they'd be behind those walls, the Queen and the Duke, and would never be seen, and that's just not what they wanted.
Well, no, and I think our charity is an example of that. It was wonderful that he devoted so much time to us. I mean, in 37 years, I think he missed 3 meetings. We meet twice a year. At the trustees meeting, we rotate round trustees' homes, so very often the Duke would enjoy dinner after a meeting, and there would be great hilarity and lots of laughter at his wonderful jokes, and he's a real raconteur.
Do you have a favourite memory of him?
Well, my favourite memory is not to do with our charity, but taking him round a biscuit factory in Glasgow, where he displayed all the characteristics of being very challenging, but very supportive, incredibly interested in the engineering aspects of the site, and it was an amazing experience. He was there for an hour and a half, so we had a long time with him, and that's one of my abiding memories of him.
And on a local level here in Windsor, how do you feel the town will remember him?
Well, I think they will miss him because, as we said before, they see him regularly.
I think we're probably going to lose a bit of motorbike going past there. Do carry on, Chris.
I think they will miss him. I think, like the rest of the nation, Windsor residents are realising just how many things he did. the expanse of things that he was interested and involved in and making happen was extraordinary, you know, from the World Wildlife Fund through the Royal Society of Engineers, and our little, relatively little charity as well, and being able to devote that time, I think, was fantastic. So I think the Windsor residents will have those sorts of memories of him, and I think
Indeed.
they will be really happy that he spent his last few months here
yeah.
with Her Majesty the Queen.
Indeed. Oh, Chris, thank you so much for sharing those memories. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Well, over the last week, people, as Chris has just said, has been sharing stories and memories of Prince Philip. In the House of Commons this week, Harriet Harman, the MP for Camberwell and Peckham, spoke of her memories of the Duke and specifically mentioned the Westminster House Youth Club. She called it one of the success stories of the Duke of Edinburgh Award. Katie Barnfield went to take a look.
Do you want to see if anybody wants to try it, taste it?
Training for their Duke of Edinburgh Award. But these young people would never have been able to do this without Westminster House Youth Club. At the Peckham Club, they provide everything, from the activities to the food, for free.
When called for interviews, when I told them I'd done my Duke of Edinburgh, those people, they're always in shock.
Rhys came to the club every week for 8 years and did his bronze, silver and gold award here.
And you went to Buckingham Palace to pick up your award as well,
yes,
didn't
in
you?
2018.
What was that like?
It was just an amazing experience, seeing the royal family, meeting people that you never usually meet.
You can dive in and learn the art of life-saving.
Started by Prince Philip himself in 1956, the Duke of Edinburgh Awards are a series of physical and mental challenges designed to develop skills for life. Westminster House put around 40 young people through the awards every year, even getting a mention in the House of Commons for their work.
They get more black and minority ethnic young people through the awards than almost anyone else. Many of their young people have had a difficult start in life or have not thrived at school, and yet through the Duke of Edinburgh Awards find a route through to self-confidence.
It takes you places that you didn't know. It builds your confidence in ways that you wouldn't imagine that it could build your confidence.
Nancy did her award here in 2016 and has now come back to lead other young people at Westminster House.
It's an important milestone for some young people, and especially in your career, it changes the way employers look at you. When you say to them that you've done your Duke of Edinburgh, they understand the amount of time that a person would have to put in order to complete that.
Prince Philip would often personally meet young people who completed their Gold Award. Zoe met him twice, once at Westminster House and again when she collected her award from him.
What was he like?
Very witty, and he is quite funny, but he did also encourage and support young people doing the Duke of Edinburgh Award, and he did understand how hard it may be for some people to complete it, but he did encourage us. I think young people will remember him from doing the Duke of Edinburgh Award. If I'm completing the Duke of Edinburgh, it's making me proud, it's making my family proud, and he knows that his legacy is living on.
A legacy many of the young people here say will stay with them for life. Katie Barnfield, ITV News.
Nice. Brilliant. Well, that's all from us in Windsor for now. Later in the programme, we'll be looking at another of the Duke's patronages, the Shakespeare's Globe. But for now, here's Lucrezia with the rest of the day's news.
Charlene, thank you. 3 years ago, Sammy Siddham was walking home after watching a West Ham game when he was stabbed to death in Newham in what's thought to be a case of mistaken identity. Since then, 10 people have been arrested, but no one has ever been charged with his murder. Police believe an anonymous caller who was previously phoned with tip-offs may hold crucial information about Sammy's killers, as his father remains desperate for answers. Sam Holder reports.
3 years ago today, Samira's world fell apart. A single father now grieving for his only child. Sammy Siddham was 18 when he was stabbed to death. His killers thought he was someone else.
So we used to do everything together and we used to go everywhere together. So there is no place that I go to that doesn't remind me of him. There is nothing that I do that doesn't remind me of him. So I miss him everywhere you can imagine. Everywhere I go to, there is always a reminder of him.
Sammy had been walking home from watching West Ham, a promising law student, gentle and well-behaved. He had no reason to suspect he was in danger. Police believe there was a fight between two gangs earlier that evening, and he may have been mistaken as a rival.
It's something you never expect to happen to such a wonderful young man. The pain of losing him doesn't change.
Since Sammy was killed, 10 people have been arrested, but nobody charged with murder. There is, though, one key lead. Somebody has tipped off the police multiple times, and now £20,000 is being offered for information. Normally when the police put out an appeal, it's a general appeal, really, but in this instance there is someone very specific you're trying to speak to, is that right?
Somebody has contacted us anonymously on a few occasions now, providing information including the name of what they describe as the main person responsible. If they're concerned about their safety or whatever, we can do things to assist them, protect them and move that forward.
Sammy was killed right by his family home. His dad says his life ended too that day. He wants the killers caught, so no parent suffers the same pain as him. Sam Holder, ITV News.
Actor Helen McCrory, known for her roles in Peaky Blinders and Harry Potter, has died from cancer at the age of 52. Helen was born in Paddington and lived in North London with her husband, actor Damien Lewis. He confirmed the sad news this afternoon. He said, "I am heartbroken to announce that after an heroic battle with cancer, the beautiful and mighty woman that is Helen McCrory has died peacefully at home, surrounded by a wave of love from family and friends." And a woman who was arrested in connection with the disappearance and murder of Sarah Everard has had her bail extended. Sarah's body was found in Woodland in Kent more than a week after she was last seen in South London on March the 3rd. The woman, who is in her 30s, was arrested on suspicion of assisting an offender and has now been bailed until early June. Serving police officer Wayne Cousins has been charged with murder. The Football Association has been accused of treating female footballers like second-class citizens. Women are twice as likely to suffer a brain injury in collision sports, but despite this, have fewer resources to help diagnose concussion at their games. We've been speaking to former Crystal Palace captain, sharing her story of how concussion ended her career prematurely as a warning to others, as Rachel Brown reports.
My life's been consumed from football since I was 5. And I think it was hard for me to figure out what's next for me, and going through that little bit of identity crisis of who am I without football.
Forced to leave the game she loves, Freya Holdaway retired from football last year. 3 concussions in the space of 18 months. Fearful if she didn't leave the game, her symptoms would have only got worse.
I thought sometimes, if I carry on playing, what would my 4th concussion look like? Because my 2nd one, I did have 2 seizures on the side of the pitch. And then my 3rd one came just from headering a ball, like a normal activity that you would do in the game. So I was like, if I can get concussed from that, what would my next concussion look like? I don't want to ruin the back end of my life where, I have to be put in a home maybe at 50.
This was taken after a pre-season friendly, Freya's first concussion, and what started off months of symptoms.
It was that classic late onset concussion where, after that I was like, I'm not feeling really good, my eyes hurt, got a constant headache.
You're a defender. Heading is a big part of your
absolutely.
game. Do you think the idea of ruling it out completely is just not realistic?
I think it changed the game so much. I think if I didn't header the ball, would I be okay? Maybe.
In an inquiry into brain injuries in sport, MPs were told women are twice as likely to suffer concussion than men. But with fewer doctors, limited technology and research in the women's game, things are far from equal.
I think that with the money coming into the game, it's absolutely essential that they bring in more doctors and that they have real-time footage for those doctors to see so that they can make proper assessments as to whether or not there's a potential for concussion. This is an issue, frankly, that could need government action, but maybe even just investigative action to ensure that women aren't treated as second-class citizens, effectively.
In a statement, the FA say player welfare is of paramount importance and we work closely with the clubs to ensure that the appropriate level of medical support is provided to players. All doctors are highly trained to diagnose and manage serious injuries, including head injuries and concussions. Freya was faced with two choices: take a risk and carry on playing, or leave football behind for good. In the end, she chose a future that puts her health first. Rachel Brown, ITV News.
All right, let's return to Windsor now, ahead of the Duke of Edinburgh's funeral tomorrow afternoon. Charlene.
Yes, Lucrezia, Martin has joined me now. Martin, I remember being here for the royal wedding not that long ago, and the streets were packed full of people. There was lots of pomp and ceremony, and I think the only hint of any kind of pomp and ceremony are the wardens of Windsor Castle who have been here all day. It's a very different royal occasion, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think tomorrow, as you say, isn't going to have that pomp and pageantry we would normally associate with a royal event. Instead, it'll be a much more poignant event. It will be more personal, and even though it will be broadcast on TV, because it's going to be behind the walls, in some ways it will be more private. Now, we've been saying, of course, throughout the programme they want people to stay away. To give some concept as to why that's so important, with Harry and Meghan's wedding, 125,000 people showed up here in Windsor, and of course with the current guidelines about not gathering during COVID, that of course wouldn't be a good thing. Now, the Met Police and Thames Valley Police have issued a note to say that there will be very visual policing both here, Buckingham Palace and around London, trying to disperse any gatherings. They say they'll do that in a calm and respectful way befitting of the Duke.
Okay, Martin, thank you. And if you want to join us as we remember Prince Philip tomorrow, on ITV we have a special programme. Prince Philip, a royal funeral, will include live coverage of the service from 1:15 tomorrow afternoon. To Shakespeare's Globe now, where for over 40 years the Duke served as patron. His support was integral to turning the theatre from an idea into reality. Part of the foundations of the building by the Thames are the oaks he donated from Great Windsor Park. He and the Queen then opened the building in 1997. On and off stage, the Globe says it's lost a friend, as Ruggs Martell now reports.
At the Globe, a flag at half-mast. Behind the scenes, Philip was this theatre's royal stagehand.
He'd been involved with Shakespeare's Globe for over 40 years, had taken a great interest right up to the times when he was stepping down from many of his patronages. This is the Great Globe itself.
During 4 decades of his life, he was the Globe's patron, overseeing the fitting of its first foundations and attending the royal opening night. How important was he to the creation of the Globe Theatre?
Many people were involved in supporting Sam Wanamaker in trying to get this theatre built. Prince Philip immediately liked the idea of building a theatre that Shakespeare would recognise, and felt that actually, as I heard as someone said, it was a damn good thing.
Even when the theatre was just a dream, he helped get the money for it to be built.
Well, this is always in my office. It's the 1982 fundraising brochure for North America, and it's got a foreword from our royal patron in saying what this beautiful theatre could be, and please support us. But also, it wasn't just one royal patron. We had Princess Grace of Monaco with a beautiful photo of her.
Prince Philip didn't just help with the funding of the Globe Theatre, but actually helped build it by donating oak trees from Windsor.
He came up with the idea of providing some oak. I believe at that time oak was quite scarce in the UK, and indeed we had to, shock horror, import some oak from France to help build the Globe Theatre.
One of you is sitting near a post which came from an oak tree in Windsor Great Park. I don't know which one it is. If anything falls down, it'll probably be that one.
But with him donating oak from Windsor Great Park did mean that then other landowners across the country donated oak. So I'm not sure which of the bays is the Windsor Bay, but we do know that he was sitting there with Her Majesty the Queen for the opening in 1997. And they arrived by boat down the Thames in the way that maybe the courts did 400 years ago and watched the opening performance.
The Globe has had many a memorable night since it opened and brought smiles to thousands, in part thanks to its patron prince. Ruggs Martell, ITV News, at the Globe Theatre.
When the Duke is laid to rest here tomorrow, it really does represent the end of an era. He was a man of his time who didn't always get it right, but his charitable endeavours will survive long after his death, especially the young people we've spoken to just this week. There'll be many lasting legacies, but as a neighbour, both here and in London, he will be missed by many.
Well, when the Queen thinks about Prince Philip, she'll think about all the lovely memories that they both shared together, which is why I think the Queen will miss Prince Philip very deeply.
We will remember him by his wit and smiley face and how he stood by the Queen for over 70 years.
Well, he was a nice person. I've only just learnt about him now, so I've heard lots of stories about him, and I think he's a great person.
Broke my heart completely. So I felt like one piece of card missing. He was beside with the Queen all the time and accompanying him. It's a great inspiration for me with my partner. I'll miss him.
I think his level of duty and service to the Queen and country and his great sense of humour, which was British if anything.
He apologised in advance for not coming to our 175th anniversary, which is going to be in 2031, as he would have been 109. He was a great guy, and everyone warmed to him.
He greatly overstayed his allotted time with us, so he must have been having a good time. Got through a couple of drinks with us and enjoyed hearing the many answers to his stock question of, what do you do?
He was a legend. He was quite a funny guy. He spoke his mind, and I like people like that. He's one of a kind. He's like your old uncle who's just that little bit naughty. It's kind of sad and it's a tragedy. But 99 years, great innings.
I like inclusiveness, and he included absolutely everybody. And people from all walks of life would say that, so that's what I liked about him.
Very nice that the Duke was obviously a Navy man and liked being by the water, and just stood for a lot of the stuff that I enjoy doing, like rowing and being out on the river and on the water and in the boat and being with your friends.
His honesty, and he was just, I feel, an asset to our country.
A range of emotions. One minute you feel extremely sad, then you feel quite happy that he was just a wonderful man and a support to the Queen.
I worked as a royal butler, and I had met them on many occasions around the country in different events, and I know how wonderful and how many people's hearts he actually touched.
He is just a person that you could really always look up to and think about him when you're sad, and you would feel comforted in some way or another.
Hello there. Very good evening to you. Across the capital, first thing this morning, a rather cold start to our day. Temperatures around -3 degrees Celsius, but still some very atmospheric photos sent in from our viewers earlier on. But with high pressure remaining firmly in control of our weather through the weekend, it should remain fairly dry and settled with some sunny spells at times. Starting to turn a touch milder by the end of the weekend, but still with clear skies overnight, it will be rather chilly. Here's the area of high pressure which is sat firmly in the driving seat at the moment, keeping those weather fronts at bay. But as we go through the latter part of the weekend, the milder air starts to win out, pushing away the cooler air. And for all of us, our temperatures will start to recover back to where they should be for the time of year. Through the rest of this evening and overnight, though, we say goodbye to the cloud that we have seen across much of the county, or the capital, I should say, through today. And as we go overnight tonight, clearing skies for many. Again, a harsh frost by dawn tomorrow morning, with temperatures jumping into -2, maybe even -3 degrees. It does mean that we start tomorrow then, of course, Saturday, first day of the weekend, with more sunshine around. In fact, a rather chilly start to the day, but our temperatures soon recovering, and we hold on to near enough wall-to-wall sunshine by the afternoon as well. Those winds staying fairly light, just a bit of fair weather cloud by the afternoon, and top temperatures 12 to 15 degrees Celsius there. That's 59 in Fahrenheit. As for Sunday, the second day of the weekend, we do it all over again. Chilly to start, sunny spells through most of the day, a little bit more cloud into the afternoon, but I think for most of us, staying dry and feeling fine actually. Top temperatures 12 to 14, maybe again 15, possibly 16 degrees where we do see more sunshine with those winds staying fairly light. So yes, as we go through the rest of the weekend, we hold on to sunny spells, a lot of dry and fine weather to be enjoyed. But just note that those UV levels will be moderate as we go through the coming few days, with top temperatures back to where they should be for the time of year. That's it from me. Bye-bye.